Hey, before you get going, Meg, I know you guys have something you want to tell the audience. Why don't you fill them in?
Yeah, so the episode you're about to listen to is an interview with Deena Kastor in Tokyo, which was our last stop of the Move Her Mind event series. And we actually bumped this episode one forward, so there is one more chat that we have that we'll release in 2 weeks. But we wanted to announce some really big news, which we do with Deena at the end of this podcast. So make sure you listen through the entire thing and hear all the details at the end.
Does anybody say peas and carrots at the end?
Sometimes
no.
we have people yell it in the audience.
Oh,
yeah.
But yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, since I'm not going to be on that one, peas and carrots.
Yes, but Deena has some phenomenal advice. She always has wonderful words of wisdom for all of us. So make sure you listen to all of her jazz. And then, stay tuned for a super exciting announcement at the end.
Thanks, Karen, and thank you all for joining us today. I am Megan with Believe in the Run. I know there's a lot of familiar faces in here, but thank you all for joining us. And as Karen said, this is our 13th and final stop of the Move Her Mind event series. And yeah, Deena could not think of a better person to end this with.
And I'm Megan Featherston of Featherstone Nutrition, and we always give a little bit of an update about where we're at here and what we're doing. So the very first podcast that we had for this was with the PhD who ran the initial study that kind of prompted us to go on this Move Her Mind tour. And they were looking at differences in gender and movement, not only in the United States, but across the world. And what they found was there was a lot of discrepancy between why women weren't moving as much as we wanted to move and why men thought we weren't moving as much as we wanted to move. There was some wonderful things that came out of this study. And we do have a few here, just overall stats that are pretty impressive. And I'm not sure that I need to convince any of us in this room of the benefits of movement. But they found in this study, the more women move, the better they feel. Women who exercised regularly reported feeling 52% happier, 50% more energized, 48% more confident, and 67% less stressed, and 80% less frustrated. So this is the 13th and final stop, as Karen said at the beginning, of the Move Her Mind tour, and we have been going all over the United States, and now we're international. I think that's what this means. Spreading the word on women and movement and trying to get other women to encourage more women to move, and not just in certain ways, but in the way that they want to move their own body. So we are very excited to extend this conversation here to Tokyo with the one and only Deena Kastor, who probably doesn't really need much introduction here, but we'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself like we always let our guests introduce, and we'll go from there.
It is such a pleasure and a privilege to be here with all of you. We're spending the first week of the World Athletics Championships together, making a lot of memories, and to have these type of conversations is so meaningful for me and my personal journey, being in the running space since the age of 11. Now it's 41 years of this sport, and feeling so privileged for the women that came before me that paved the way, but I definitely still see some discrepancies. And the reason why you haven't seen me hang up my shoes and retire is because I do feel value in this, not just chasing PRs, and that running is more meaningful than anything the watch could tell us because of how it makes us feel. So a privilege to be a part of the ASICS brand and to have this conversation with you guys. And I have had the privilege of sitting in on some of your discussions in different places around the United States, and it does get to the heart of why so many of us so meaningfully spend time in our running shoes. And I'm so grateful that you guys have been a big part in spreading that word and really taking a lot of women under your wings and empowering them.
So the first thing we love to ask during all of these podcasts is sort of the origin story. So can you tell us how and when running entered your life?
Yeah, this is a story of failure, people, because my parents did see the value of having strong role models, and sports were a good way at getting me and my younger sister involved. But we started on the soccer fields, as many kids do, with all the great programming that soccer has. And I was the kid on my dad's soccer team that only scored one goal that season, and it was in the first game. and it was for the other team because I didn't realize we switched sides at halftime. So I had a big L on my forehead for that. And so later in the season, there was a coach that came up to my mother, and she tells this story much better. But she was sitting there, like, having her orange slices ready to give to the kids, and a coach came up to my mom and said, "Is there something wrong with your daughter? She seems to be getting worse." So can you imagine scoring a goal for the other team and then someone seeing that you're actually getting worse than that? So soccer was not my thing, and so we ended up moving on to softball, where I was like making dandelion necklaces in the outfield for all my teammates because the ball rarely ever came to me until this one day. People were screaming my name, and I looked up, and they're all pointing at the ground, and I looked down, and there was the ball, and I threw it to first base because that's what you're supposed to do, but the person had already scored the run. So this is my story in sports. And it wasn't until they finally decided, like, her self-esteem needs a boost. Like, where can she go where there's no tryouts, she's not going to get cut, and track and field, cross country was where it was. And so that very first day when I was put on the distance crew, because Marion Jones was the great sprinter of my time, she was in a rival track club. So in order to save my self-esteem, my parents were like, put her in distance. And so I got let loose in the Santa Monica Mountains, and the coach said, "I'm going to blow the whistle. And when you hear the whistle, you have to turn around and start coming back to the school." And I heard the whistle, and I was like, "Oh, do we have to?" Like, I really wanted to see more. And so it was such like a great moment to find something you loved. I had always seen the mountains there. I didn't realize you could go into them. And so it's just been a love affair with exploring since then. And whenever running starts to get like mundane or boring, I know that my joy is on exploring new trails. So I find a new place on the map and put on my shoes and head out, and my cup gets filled immediately.
So you mentioned your parents were concerned about your self-esteem in all these sports, but reflecting back on it, was your self-esteem, did you feel that your self-esteem was hurt by any of those early experiences before you found running?
I don't believe so. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like that was a buzzword at the time, self-esteem. Now it's mental health. We have to do it for our mental health. And I think sometimes kids getting uncomfortable, it's really important to be uncomfortable and to find your own solution for it. But that being said, even though I didn't feel my self-esteem was destroyed at the age of 11 years old, I do feel grateful that I found something to just be the foundation of the rest of my life. And really, I feel like it's just a relationship. It's like any relationship, that my relationship with running has really grown and found different phases, different purpose, a different meaning in my life, but it's been rock solid, the strongest relationship I've ever had.
And you mentioned that you realize when you've lost that joy, and you think of those moments. How do you find the joy again if you're in those moments of like, running feels boring, mundane, I'm not enjoying it? Like, how do you get back to the joy of running?
Yeah, I think in life, we just have to be self-reflective. And there are times where I am just driven by emotion, right? Like, just get to the heart of it, and you grind it out, and you have your goals there, and you're just like blinders on, relentlessly following those goals. And then you're doing another lap on the track, and you're like, this is just doing it again. And so when it doesn't give me that like fire and that like total excitement of waking up in the morning and jumping into my shoes, then I start looking at the map, and I'm like, where else can I run in a circle or a loop or an out and back? And so it's just having a self-awareness and knowing what makes you tick in everything, right? Like what gives you a fire in your belly every day. And for me, it's not just running, but it's also like grocery shopping and preparing meals for people around the table. And like, those are two joys, and I find them a little similar, that they can be very solitary. Like, you can be in there and just like, your mind can be with you in a mile, and you could kind of deconstruct a problem or troubleshoot something. And the same way in the kitchen, that you could just be there like preparing and putting intention and fueling and nurturing your family and loved ones that are around the table. And then it's that social part of it, like showing up on weeks like this at the World Championships in Tokyo and sharing all of these moments together. Is very similar to sharing at the table. So I love that balance of solitude and reflection with the social aspect of it.
So you mentioned you have been in the sport of running for 41 years. a lot has changed for women in running over those 41 years. So as you reflect back on it, do you see barriers that you may have had when you started versus what you're seeing now, either personal barriers or in the sport for women in running?
Yeah, I never thought there were for me because so many women came before me, the Bobby Gibbs and the Catherine Switzers that paved the way for Joan Benoit Samuelson, one of my greatest mentors. I was 11 years old sitting in the living room floor when she won gold in 1984. And now have I not only broken her American record, but then I really consider her a close friend in the sport, and she continues to give back. And so she mentors me in that way as well. Just a phenomenal human being. And so all these women that paved the way before me, and then even those who helped, men and women who helped professionalize the sport, so it can be a profession, not just this amateur status. So I feel really grateful for those people that have paved the way. But I have seen early in my career with contracts and prize money that were kind of like discrepancies there, but they've gotten better. They're trying to find solutions. But I was heartbroken this summer when my daughter was in Chile, her very first ski competition internationally, and imagine the horror of a mother of a 14-year-old putting her on the flight at LAX and just being like, go have fun in South America. But she did. She had a great time. But she texted me during the trip and she told me, Mom, I got third place in my competition and I was so proud of her. And I was like, that is great. And she showed me a photo. She texted a photo or WhatsApped a photo, and it was her with all these prizes. And I was like, what was it? And she was like, hair ties and makeup. And I was like, oh. And she's like, and the guys got goggles and helmets. And I was like, oh, okay. They must really know you, because she's like a makeup queen. Like, she's got a refrigerator in her room that's full of makeup products. And so I'm like, okay. And when she came home, she told me that she went to the organization and said something. And I felt so proud of her for speaking up. She does love makeup, but she saw firsthand that there was inequality there. Yeah.
So going through like your history, obviously you were an amazing runner, you're a professional runner, and now you're just running for the joy of it. What was it like mentally going through that transitional period?
That's a great question. And that, I think there's a lot of phases of that, but the hardest one was having my daughter 14 years ago. I was training for the New York Marathon, and when I went from running 4:45-mile repeats to 7 minutes and 15 seconds, I'm like, something's wrong with me. And our female assistant coach was like, you should probably go get a blood test, like scratching her head. And the blood test did confirm that I was pregnant, and so screeching halt on training plans. Then I was just going to run for the health of it. Well, I had a sedentary pregnancy, like just listening to my body, can't do this. And I thought, okay, well, like just organically, I'll see how I feel after this. I will say that the scariest phone call I made was to Ben Cesar at ASICS to be like, so we're pregnant, and his first reaction was, congratulations, that is so exciting. And this was in an era of women's contracts being cut in half or taken away entirely. And so his first response was a congratulations. And then he called back an hour later and was like, here it is, here's the phone call. And he said, we're going to keep you on. We realize your value is changing, and that you could reach even a greater audience by stepping into this new role. And it was such a relief to me to hear that, especially because everyone else's news or even headlines in that time was another contract cut. And so I just felt so grateful to be with a brand that saw value in me in an evolving stage. And after having Piper, I had 4 months to get ready for the Olympic trials. And I was like, I think I can do it. Couch to marathon training program. I think I can do it. And I remember, for the first time in my running career, I had to think of someone other than myself, because even my husband, Andrew, was like totally bought into my career and massaging and stretching and traveling the world with me and preparing my ice baths and taking care of all those things around the house while I took a nap and in the middle of the day. And so now it was instead of sitting at practice and stretching and getting all those extra things done that add up to proper recovery, I was rushing home to feed Piper and to get her ready for her nap. And then it was the second run of the day that she would just be in the little carrier next to the treadmill, and I'd bang out my 4 to 6 miles on the treadmill, and she's crying there, and I'm like, just 5 more minutes. and then finally tending to her. So a lot of I guess a lot of compromise and recovery, but I was really trying to make it work. And then the Olympic trials came around, and I was 6th place, and only top 3 go to the Olympics. And I was trying to make my 4th Olympic team. And I remember that feeling at the finish line. Very first thing I felt was I failed as a mom and an athlete. And it was so heartbreaking to me to that was the first thing that came to my mind. And it took a very long road trip up the California coast in like a wonky RV that says like, rent me on the side. And everyone's passing you on the highway. And I vowed by the time that we got to Oregon that I was going to have it figured out. And I remember I was just playing with these ratios. Like, I can't give running 100% anymore. And so how am I going to do this? Maybe I'm done. Maybe I'll just like jog with the local moms. And it really didn't sit well with me. So I finally, by the time we got to Oregon, I was like, I am going to be 100% in whatever hat I'm wearing in the moment. If I'm running that in that moment, I'm 100% focused on my running. If I'm mothering at that moment, I'm 100% focused on mothering. And then I acquired a lot more hats, and I just decided like whatever the moment meets, and it really allowed me that time to be present in whatever I was doing, kind of trained me in that. I'm 100% in it when I'm in a moment. And so it's how I was able to deal with it. I'm not sure how the percentages work out really, like in real time. But it allows me to just take on all the things that I want to in my life. I have the luxury to say yes and no to a lot of things, and so my yeses just mean I'm all in, I'm bought into it, and that's running is always going to be a big part of that. Running is always going to fit in, except this morning there was a bike in the gym at the hotel, which was not as fun. But I just feel like that relationship is different, but it still feeds me very similarly. I just ran the Sydney Marathon, and I suffered in the end. It was the slowest marathon to date, but it still felt just as rewarding when that medal was around my neck afterwards. So it still gratifies in all the ways it has in the past.
And I think that's so relatable, the being 100% in what we are focused on, right? Because as mothers, as women, there's a lot on our plates. There's a lot that we're trying to balance there. And I think this was when my son was born, I was like, I need a running stroller and I'm going to run with him. I put him in there once and I was like, oh no, running is my time. Like, I don't share this with anybody, right? You are going to need to stay home and mom needs to go for a run. So I think that is just so relatable, no matter where our running journey is just in whether we have kids or not, or we're male or female. It's just remembering that is our time to focus on that, because it's so easy to let our minds run so many different directions.
And it's so important for every individual to fit that into their own schedule, because some people can only do it with the stroller. It's like the only time, like, okay, if I've got to do it, I've got to get out with Junior here, and we're going to bang out the miles together, even in swampy conditions. We're going to get it in, and if that's what allows you to get it in, then that's awesome. That's great. Park your stroller on the corner of the track and get in your intervals and give them a little toy to play with, whatever it is. But I think everyone has to figure it out themselves. And I knew even in like the heart of it, when I was trying to figure out how I could balance all these new roles in my life, that I could figure it out, because there's the CEO who has a family and a running passion, and they fit it all in. And if my job and running are the same thing, then I should have it easier than these people. So I was really inspired by the general public, by the general running community, because I saw how beautifully they could get in their training. So I just feel like the running community as a whole is so supportive, whether you know it or not. Everyone's there supporting each other by how they're living and how they're acting and the outreach in their community, how they're presenting themselves and what they're representing in races. It's why diversity is so important, so that if you can see yourself in someone out there, seeing a mom out there, seeing someone of your same race or with the same T-shirt on that's representing a charity, those are so important. It's so important to flaunt who you are so that other people can see themselves in you.
And speaking of the general racing public, when you ran Sydney recently, you were the general racing public out there, which is a little bit different than maybe how you've run some of the other majors. Tell us, what did you notice? What was the biggest shock to you as far as starting on that start line with the other thousands of people?
Yeah. So I have to shamefully say, I took in the whole experience. I peed in bushes before the race. I stripped a mannequin, an ASICS mannequin at the expo because she was wearing the only size small vest, and I wanted that vest really badly. So I was one of those like unruly people that's like, I've got to have this merchandise. So I really feel like I lived it at every end of the spectrum. But I think the most shocking thing in the race itself was how congested it was. 35,000 people on the streets of Sydney, and I really not until the end did I find like a flow of people to run with. I was being passed and passing people the entire time, and if you try to move to the outside of the road to be out of the thick of it, someone just comes zooming up on the outside and knocks you over. I felt like a little pinball at some points. So I think it was shocking, and I don't know what the answer is because races are not getting smaller. And that's what I said to myself when I was like, geez. And I'm like, well, I'm glad all these people are doing it. Like I would have these little interruptions in my head. Like, this is awesome that it's this congested and it's going to get better, as in worse. Yeah.
So ASICS, we know, sound mind, sound body is the saying. And so when you look back at some of your best races or best training blocks, what was happening in the rest of your life? Like, what was your mental state outside of running?
Yeah, when we get in a flow, it's good. I think we can all attest to that, and I think it's why we keep lacing up our shoes, is because we chase that feeling that doesn't come around very often. But here we are in Tokyo, where Mr. Onitsuka had that vision after World War II to just like fix his war-torn community, that he saw firsthand that when people moved, they were in a better mental state. And so how could he expand that to the whole nation and then the world globally? And here we are, how many years later, from 1949 until now, that we're still getting that word out, that when you move, you are in a better place. And I think there's so often I've had trouble. It's like chicken or egg, what comes first? Like, you think that you need running for a good mental space, but then you need a good mental space to power your running. So they really do work beautifully together. And it's hard to tell on which day which one is lifting the other up. But I think simultaneously, maybe it is just that teeter-totter of like needing both to go well. But I also think a buzzword for me is quality, in order to have the balance of a body and mind that are both sound. And if I am just finding quality time and quality runs and spending that quality time with quality people and eating quality food and getting quality rest, it's like that to me is how I get into this flow of just goodness, of just feeling good. I need to practice that more when I'm sitting in traffic. I think I'm 52, haven't really gotten that one down, but I'll work on it. You know, we always have to aspire to be better, but I feel like if I'm living quality days or even quality hours that add up to quality days, to quality weeks, that my mind and body are both sound, but I couldn't have one without the other.
And if you were thinking back, maybe it's recent, maybe it's back earlier in your career, is there something that you think women should hear or should know, or like some bits of advice that you have for people as far as continuing with the movement that is gratifying to us personally.
Yeah, I think advice would be to just keep arriving in your running shoes, right? Keep putting them on. I think when we are moving, our bodies are creating better neurotransmitters and endorphins and oxytocin and serotonin, so we can troubleshoot better. So if we're having a bad day or feeling rushed, there's times where I might have 15 minutes and I'm like, I'm gonna do it anyway, and I jump in my shoes, and then you run those 15 minutes really fast as if the 15 minutes were gonna be longer. But you maybe it's just you're in a rush cycle. But getting that in, for some reason, it allows me to be better at everything that I do. So just keep showing up in your running shoes. It's so important, that persistence and consistency and that resiliency that it offers. And time again, if you keep choosing that, then it's just a habit, right? You're just creating a habit of showing up. And I say that using it as a metaphor also, that if you are so committed to the time in your running shoes for your physical and mental fitness, that you're going to continue showing up to other obligations in your life.
So throughout all of our stops, one of the themes that I noticed when we were talking to women is that there was a moment or even like a person who totally changed the trajectory of their life, was the reason that they came back to the sport. Is there something or someone who you think of when you think of your running career?
Yeah, I mean, that's a low-hanging fruit for me, super easy to answer, and that would be my first professional coach and greatest mentor, Joe Vigil. He just lost his life last month at the age of 95, so it was a very well-lived life, but probably one of the most generous contributors to endurance running in our country and globally, because he did get out. He wrote coaching protocols for USA Track and Field, and I just feel so privileged to have had him in my life. And he was really the person that let me see that running is bigger than just the time in your shoes, that it is a lifestyle and it is a relationship, and that every decision you make in the day can either take away from or contribute to what you're trying to do in those running shoes. And he also told me that it isn't just about the time in your running shoes. It's that lifestyle that you're creating so that you can stay committed. And I just feel really grateful for all the gifts and gems of his teachings. He showed me that optimism. He said he would joke that he's just a coach, but he was such a psychologist and as well as a physiologist, and just showing that it's not just sleeping and eating and training. It is also having your finances in check and your interpersonal relationships, like just keeping all of that sound. And when those things are sound, life is in a good flow. And I really, really love that this just old retired football coach is the one teaching those lessons. I feel really grateful I really do feel that everything about me today is because of his leadership.
That's really cool. And I wanted to say thank you for all that you have done for the sport and for women in this sport. I will never forget, I think you were running the Chicago Marathon, and Thomas and I got there at the finish, and it was when Emily Sisson broke the American record, and both you and Joni were there to congratulate her. And it, in so many sports, it's somebody took down my record, or somebody beat this, or somebody beat that, and it's looked at as a negative thing. And to see you both embrace her and support her, you guys are such incredible role models for the sport and women in the sport. And it's just so cool to see that and to have you here with all of us tonight. And for this to conclude our event series. It's not a tour.
I can't even take the credit for that, because when I had the privilege of lowering Joan's record at the London Marathon in 2003, she called me at the finish line. She called my agent, and my agent passed the phone to me. Ray Flynn passed the phone to me. "This is Joni. I just want to say I knew you could do it." And I was like, "What?" So cool. what a class act. Like, could you raise the bar any higher? And so when Kira D'Amato broke my record at the Houston Marathon, lowered the record even more, I was like, I got to call her. So luckily her agent is Ray Flynn. And so I called my agent and said, is Kira anywhere near you? And he said, she's right here. She's starting to celebrate. And I congratulated her. And then Joan, Kira, and I were all at the Chicago Marathon that year to be able to be at the finish line. So we didn't have to call her. We were all there at the finish line to give her a big embrace. And I just feel like that's the running community. It's like you just want to have women cheering on women, runners cheering on runners, and it's such a beautiful uplift when we can be there for each other. Because it's a different story if you're on the starting line with them, like throwing an elbow or two. But if it's for the sport in general, we're going to help lift each other up. So once that gun fires, we can be a little feisty, but once we cross that finish line, back to being supporters of one another.
I love that. So kind of on that same theme, we're really excited that we're continuing this Move Her Mind event series, or I guess it's evolving, and we will be taking, in partnership with ASICS, 100 lucky women to the LA Marathon with us, and they will receive nutrition and training coaching from Megan and I. And what else do we want to say about it?
It's on International Women's Day, the race itself. So exciting.
Yeah, we're really excited to have the Megs come together, the nutrition piece, the training piece, help 100 women, get them there, hoping it can be all abilities, but maybe some newer runners as we're encouraging people to get up and move their body. But we're really stoked to give this a try and help more people get active and get involved and be able to do it together.
Yeah, and by the time this podcast airs, we will have figured out the whole submission of how you enter, so we will have information once this podcast comes out.
You're going to be busy right now, penciling that out and seeing how it works. Well, I think it's really amazing that the two of you have embraced the independent study that ASICS backed and hired, contracted out to see what challenges women had, what motivated them, what they felt they still needed, and the two of you just grabbed that and ran with it. So thank you for inspiring so many.
All right, so as you guys just heard, we are so excited to be expanding and evolving the Move Her Mind event series into this new project that Megan and I are working with ASICS. We're taking a team of 100 women to the LA Marathon, and they will receive custom nutrition coaching and training from the two of us.
I mean, we keep getting demands of how can we have the Megs coach us? So here we go. We're putting it out there for 100 females. So the application is open now, so you all can fill that out. I'm sure it'll be in the show notes so that we can see how much interest we have and choose 100 of you at random selection. And as Meg said, there will be custom nutrition coaching and also run coaching from the other Meg. You will get a bib to the LA Marathon, and we will have 6 live Zoom sessions for us all to come together and answer questions. We'll also have a communication platform for the 100 women to get to know each other and chat, and then also for Meg and I to weigh in on some questions that you guys have as we're going through this training session together.
And this is open to everyone. So there's going to be training programs written for beginner, intermediate, and advanced runners. So no matter where you are in your running journey, whether you're just getting started or you're going for a real big PR, we want everyone to apply and join us in LA.
We do. We would love it if you would join us for your first marathon or your 10th. So think about it.
And when you say everyone, you don't mean men, right?
We're focused on ladies for this project. That's kind of been the whole theme of this event series, so we're continuing with it. And yeah, so this one's for the ladies, but we hope that you all apply.
Yeah, and some other perks from ASICS is you will have VIP experience on race day. So we'll have transportation to get there and then a VIP suite beforehand that you can leave your gear in before the race and then meet us back there afterwards. Some ASICS training gear and hopefully a lot of other good, exciting perks that we are working on in the background right now.
Yeah, so we're still flushing out all the details, but I have to say this is probably the most excited I've been about a project in a long time. So yeah, we can't wait to train with you all.
I couldn't agree more. So get that application in, and we can't wait to work with you guys soon.